Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for May 6th, 2025. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collections, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we are streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share questions and comments there as well, and I'll relay them to Gayle.
Hi, Facebook.
We're going to start by talking about last week's Weekly Tittle, which was called A Peaceful Table. The assignment was to look for ways to make the experience of eating meals or feeding guests in your home more enjoyable. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who worked on our dining-themed tittle this week. Please let us know in the comments. I want to share a couple things, actually. One is that we got a Facebook message or comment, I forget which, pointing us to an article from The Atlantic from last year that was talking about the issue of the declining American dining room. So
Oh,
keep an
interesting.
eye out for that. And then I also wanted to share that our editor wanted us to call the episode "Show Me Where the Dining Room Table Touched You." So that was an
Right.
alternate
Thank you,
title.
Joe.
YouTube viewer Powell Amos shared this comment about last week's episode. Listen to this just in time before today's meetup. It was an interesting take. I like the idea of the modern dining room becoming like a guest room space rather than a dedicated formal dining room. Instead of a Murphy bed or sleeper sofa, it can be a Murphy table and chairs concept, where it's easy to set up for guests on those rare occasions, but otherwise the space's primary function serves our daily uses.
Thank you for this comment. And it was so timely this morning. And that is exactly our point that you've just made. A dining room doesn't have to stay a dedicated room to dining if we don't use it that way and we want to make it something more useful day to day. I love the idea of the Murphy table and chairs, furniture that can make a dining space when it's needed, but otherwise can be put away to get them out of the way of the daily uses that happen in the room. And thank you for that comment. It was exactly a summary of what the point we were trying to make. So appreciate it.
That's what we've done. We did in our last space and here. We had nothing that you could even very generously describe as a dining room in that little house,
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And in this space, we have all kinds of room, but we don't really want to dedicate it to a dining room. But we have a folding table that, plastic folding table. It's about probably 6 feet long,
Right.
maybe 30 inches wide,
That you can pop up.
and the folding benches that go with it.
Yeah.
And it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but if your priority is to gather everybody around one table, it does the trick.
And then you're going to be at the table for 90 minutes maybe, and then you get up and go sit on the couch. Like,
Yeah, and you can even, put it away or, clear it and turn it into the game table after that.
right,
Because you're
exactly,
not going to put,
exactly.
with your plastic folding table, you're probably not going to go all out on the tablecloth and fine china.
Right. You could though.
Lisa Beth says, my home was built in 1875.
Oh
The
my
dining
goodness.
the dining room table is the center of entertaining weekly.
Cool. Well, good that you get to use yours that way. And I'm glad that, I mean, that's the purpose of having the dining room is for everybody to gather in it. So if you're using it that way, awesome. Not everybody is in your position.
M says the dining room was overrun with an overflowing desk, papers, file cabinet, and computers. I
Oh,
tackled papers and removed a 9-inch pile. Next, I have to clear out the file cabinet. I plan to go ahead with putting in a smaller table for dining and move the big one into a work area. Until
oh,
now,
good.
until now, the dining room table had been a desk.
And now you're about to change that. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And tackling the file cabinet, like the file cabinets are the museum to old, reduced, unimportant paperwork. There's always way more, like it's super important when you put it in, and a year later, it's not important anymore. And so there's often historical, it's like an archaeological dig to go into a file cabinet and dig out that paperwork. And you'll be able to get rid of a whole lot of paper and make fresh room in the file cabinet. And then you can ask yourself, do I really want a really tall file cabinet in this room where I'm going to do office things and dining things? Or can I change the way that I deal with paper that and how I store it? And so once you empty it a lot, take the opportunity of, for all the things that stay, does it have to stay in that particular file cabinet, or can you accomplish that in some other way? And good job on the 9 inches of paper, by the way.
Yes.
That went flying by in what he was reading, but the truth is, you put 9 inches away, and I know that that's a lot of time to deal with that. So
Yeah,
good on you.
definitely. Yeah. All right. I think we should move on to our main topic. How's that sound?
Okay.
Decluttering can yield many psychological benefits, such as reduced stress and anxiety and a greater sense of calm. These gains can, in turn, make the work of decluttering and organizing more effective and rewarding. Today, we're going to suggest ways to apply principles of positive psychology to clarify and energize our decluttering efforts. And, Gail, I think this is where we need to give our usual
Oh,
disclaimer that we are not mental health professionals. We are not
that is
health
correct.
professionals of any kind. And
Have no training in that area whatsoever,
we
except
are,
life experience, right?
right. We have lots of life experience and we know a lot of people dealing with these issues, all the psychological issues involved in the
Mhm.
work and in resisting the work.
Right, right, right.
And
Exactly.
so this is just our personal advice to our audience, and consult a mental health professional if you feel like you
If you need that area of
need
expertise.
their expertise. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. I had completely forgotten that. And of course, we need to do that. So, clutter can impact many aspects of our mental health by producing increased stress, exacerbating anxiety and depression, and diminishing our cognitive function. It can also increase feelings of shame, inadequacy, and overwhelm, further impacting our well being. Research also highlights links between clutter and difficulty focusing, decreased productivity, and even negative behavioral patterns. So, here's a more detailed look at these issues. In terms of the impact on mental health, stress and anxiety caused by cluttered environments that can trigger stress and anxiety, leading to increased cortisol levels. And the stress is basically continuous. We've all had those thoughts about the stuff sitting in the pile over there in the room and constantly reminding us that we haven't cleared it up yet. Never ending thoughts and resulting bad feelings from those thoughts happen over and over while it's not resolved. It's just a constant trigger that's happening, and it is then continuously triggering your stress, your anxiety, and making your cortisol levels go up
And
artificially, truly.
and I think there are part of the key words there are while it's not resolved.
Yes.
I've been doing I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I've been working on the paper project since
That's
the move.
okay. You and
And
everybody else in this room, so don't worry
and
about
and
it.
I'll have a really good day and I'll empty a big box of paper and keep 3 sheets and throw the
Yeah.
rest into the pile for shredding. And then the next day I'm like, well, why don't I feel any better? You know? And that's because the resolution isn't there yet. The project
You're focusing on what's undone.
the project goes on. Yeah. And so I focus on what's undone instead of
Hmm.
celebrating the progress. I should need to take the advice we give people all the time. And
Your friend, the Clutter Fairy, says you have to
mhm,
celebrate the small wins every time.
yeah,
You have to give yourself credit because you did a whole box. And I am sure that there are people in the room who will chime in the chat to say, I wish I had done a whole box. I would be thrilled that I had done a whole box. So we're all clapping for Ed right now. Yay. You did a box, brother. And a box is now out of your life forever.
to be fair, the only reason I'm able to do a whole box is because I have stuff that is so old and so completely irrelevant that I can occasionally blaze through,
That's
and
okay.
do a whole box. And then
You get that win.
well, and the thing is, you do a whole box and it's like, oh, this is all junk. And then you go to the next box and the first half inch is 400 decisions to
I
make,
know, right, right. I know. I
So
know. It's the pendulum's gonna swing back and forth, right? And so
yeah,
take your wins of the I was able to throw a whole box away and be done with that, right? Like you got to claim luck was on your side and you got a whole box of garbage. And so that was super wonderful. And in the end, you will finally get to it'll all be gone and you'll never have to look at it again. So
yeah,
and the one that has the 400 decisions at half an inch, that's the one that I say do a little bit of it and then go do some more of another box that's
yeah.
easier and then come back, like
Find
give yourself
something,
a mental
yeah, more
break.
more fun for the break.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're going to cheer for you as you do your paper project.
Thank you. Okay, I cut you off at depression. There you go.
Yes, thank you. Depression is also an impact on mental health, and clutter can worsen existing depression, and it contributes to the development of the condition too. I do experience this with my clients a lot, that having lived with an unresolved collection of stuff that's been mentally barking at them for a long time, at some point it becomes so overwhelming that it really feels depressing, and I've seen it make depression worse or make depression appear where it wasn't before. And so it is absolutely, clutter can absolutely contribute to that mental health condition a lot. Cognitive overload, clutter overwhelms the senses, makes it harder for the brain to focus, and it leads to cognitive fatigue. This is especially true for those with neurodivergent brains. If your brain works with ADHD or OCD, that overload of your brain can be so distracting and pull you away from what you were intended to be doing and over and over. And so that overwhelm, that cognitive overwhelm can really shut down your ability to function or divert you to doing something other than what you were intending to do, and that's super annoying. Feelings of shame and inadequacy, clutter can definitely trigger feelings of shame and inadequacy and overwhelm, and it's making it even more difficult to address the issue. Just this week, I had a client who is a professional organizer actually talking about how she can help her clients just fine, but she struggles to apply the same principles in her own home. And so she feels a big dose of inadequacy and feels stuck and embarrassed. She's having that, I can do it for others, but I can't do it for myself challenge.
Yeah,
And it's making her,
little imposter
yeah, yeah,
syndrome
yeah,
there,
yeah.
maybe.
And
Yeah,
it makes her feel a huge amount of inadequacy as she tries to do the work for them. And she also is judging herself really harshly because I can do it for everybody else, but I can't do it for myself. And somehow that makes her feel like she's failing in some way. It's like everybody that I talk to, when they make their initial phone calls to me, I get some version of I feel ashamed, I feel embarrassed, I feel like a failure. And those are the feelings that almost everybody feels around this when they have to call and ask for help that they're ultimately going to pay for, right? Like the idea that you would call and ask somebody to help you work on it, and when you feel like you should be able to do it yourself, makes everybody feel bad. And I always try to say we don't all have the same skill sets. You can cook, I can't cook. Like I'm terrible in the kitchen, and I've given up being embarrassed about it because the truth is, I mean, yes, cooking is a basic, thing about taking care of yourself, but I hate being in the kitchen. I do not there's nothing about cooking that I find interesting or appealing other than eating the food at the end. And so I am just like there are other people in the world that are better at this than me, and I can just accept that about my life. And so um, the same can be true about you don't have the skill set to do the decluttering without help, and that's okay. It's just not you have other skills, and whatever they are, uh, there are other people that can't do what you can do, and so you just got to go with that. But like I said, everybody feels that feeling of shame and inadequacy about not being able to declutter when they feel stuck around decluttering, and it brings a whole lot of mental judgment of yourself, which is nothing but destructive, right? It can affect cluttering affects reduced cognitive function. It really makes a change, right? So you can have difficulty focusing. Clutter makes it harder to concentrate on tasks, and that leads to reduced productivity and increased procrastination. Whether clutter is in your line of sight, and so it's visually overwhelming and distracting, or just the knowledge of the task that hasn't been completed bothers you in your mind, it can destroy your concentration. And I remember that when my mother passed away, and my little sister was the executor because she lived near in the same city as mom. The idea that she was in charge of the estate was really distracting and overwhelming to her. It was a task in her mind that she fretted about all the time, that we haven't finished the estate, right? And so that unfinished task was just in her brain, rattling her head all the time, making her really, really distressed and stressed out. And the only way that we could make that better was for me to come down there and start doing the process of the work of emptying mother's house and dealing with all the contents. And I would have waited emotionally, I would have been more comfortable waiting for a year after mother passed away before we did that. But Leisha was so burdened with the feeling like she was responsible for making that happen that she couldn't, it was really making her life miserable. And so I sucked it up, and our compromise was at the 6 month point, I sucked it up and went down there with her and started working on it. And, partially I did that because she was suffering from feeling burdened by it. So it does affect your ability to concentrate and focus on tasks, and it increases, your procrastination level. It can decrease your working memory. The visual distraction of clutter reduces the capacity of your working memory. So it's going to impact your ability to make decisions and to problem solve. There's only so many things that you can hold in your working memory at any point in time. And your brain doesn't hold the priority things in memory. It just holds a random 5 to 9 things in your head at once. It doesn't matter whether they're important or not. And so if you are being distracted by the clutter that's over there in the corner mocking you, it's going to eat up some of your working memory space, and it's going to make problem solving harder for you. And I'm sure you've all experienced that as you're staring at the cluttered room and trying to make decisions, and you're finding that really, really hard to do. And yeah, clutter messes that up.
As I was as I was working on content for this episode, I was thinking that clutter sort of becomes um, the unwritten to-do list
Yes.
that is scattered all over your home, scattered, heaped, piled, squirreled,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
buried all over your home. It's an unwritten to-do list, and mm, you can't bring it into focus. You can't, because of the nature of it, you can't, it's hard to prioritize it. It's hard to
Mm.
see what's urgent. It's hard to see what's important.
It's all true.
It's because it's in this randomized form.
Right, right, right. All staring at you. And the thing about it is I find clients, they're putting a lot of thought into the unlisted tasks that are sitting over there, and they will say to me, I can't do this until I do that, I have to do this, and this is, like they have in their mind, every time they concentrate on the pile, the list of things they have to do to fix it gets longer. Like it
Yeah.
just sort of blooms in their head of all of these steps, and they don't know what order to put the steps in, and then they get that overwhelmed feeling, right? Like that pile represents 37 things I haven't done yet, and I don't know where to start or what to do first, and it's super easy for that sense of all the tasks sitting over there undone to be overwhelming in a big hurry. And it's, that it's going to impair your decision making. That cluttered environment impacts our ability to make decisions effectively. Really, anything that's overwhelming starts to shut down your ability to make decisions. And once you're overwhelmed, the brain can't pick any one thing over another. And so this is where we start talking about, you get overwhelmed and then you can't prioritize anymore. And then I say to you, okay, so just pick anything. Like it doesn't matter whether it's the most important thing. You just need to pick the one that allows you to get in motion. Because once you do that, then it'll help you move towards being able to make better decisions about it, right? There's behavioral aspects of how clutter impacts you, like procrastination. We just talked about that. Clutter can amplify our tendency to procrastinate because the task of decluttering itself can seem overwhelming. And there's nothing so good at shutting down progress as feeling overwhelmed and clueless where to start. It can affect negative behavior patterns, like clutter can contribute to those patterns, such as you eat less healthy food, you have less healthy eating habits, and it decreases social engagement, like especially that decreased social engagement because we avoid people so they don't see our mess. And in the process, we remove one of these external social checks on clutter accumulating. If you stop letting friends and family come to visit, then they're not your external trigger to clear up the space and make it work better. You sort of stop your external challenging of your space and in what condition it's in when you start hiding it and letting people not see you anymore. And so it's going to affect your social behavior for sure. It increases people's irritability. So a cluttered environment, it's going to increase irritability and it's going to decrease your overall sense of well-being. When you're feeling ashamed or overwhelmed or embarrassed and you don't like that feeling, I'm going to bet that being ashamed quickly turns into irritation. Like once you start feeling bad about yourself, getting irritable quickly is not a surprise to me at all. And maybe that's how you judge yourself. Maybe you get angry at yourself, or you get angry at the situation, or you get angry at the pile of stuff that you don't know what to do with. And then you start your day irritated before you even start interacting with anybody. And so it's definitely going to increase that. So decluttering can positively impact mental well-being by promoting a sense of control and reducing that anxiety and the stress that we talked about, and enhancing your focus and productivity. By clearing away excess items, decluttering can lead to a calmer and more peaceful environment, which in turn can improve your mood and your overall mental health, which is something that we're all striving for, I'm sure. So here are a few ways in which principles from the field of positive psychology can be applied to the work of decluttering and organizing. So this is one of the lists that we're talking about that you're going to want to get to the show notes later. So just listen to them peacefully, and then you can go, look at the written list later, right? Number one is adopt a positive mindset. Framing decluttering as a process of taking control and creating a more positive environment for yourself and your family is a much better way to cope with clutter. Remind yourself that you're the primary beneficiary for anything that you clear up. You're doing a chore, but you are the person who benefits directly from your effort. So thinking about decluttering in a more positive way, even if you're faking it until you make it, what difference does it make if you stay feeling negative about decluttering? It's not going to help your life be better. So if you can try to even artificially tell yourself, I'm doing this because it's going to make my life better. I'm doing this because I want to take control of my environment. I want to have a more positive environment that my family lives in, and I'm the one that gets the benefit. It will help you face the chore in a more positive way.
And I think taking it a step further for those who are literarily or artistically inclined, write a statement, write the mindset that you want to practice,
You want
even
to
if you
be
don't
in.
even if you don't feel it yet. Write it down or make a piece of art out of it. Deborah just mentioned a mantra. She said, let's see, sorry, I was right there and I lost it. She said, I have a mantra: motivation follows action. I have it in my
Yes.
bathroom to remind me because, oh, it's so easy to forget.
Yes, it is. I agree with you on
Yeah.
that.
And wherever it is that you go wandering, looking for motivation, searching for motivation,
Yeah.
put up that sign that says, no, get into action, do something.
Do something and motivation will follow.
Yeah.
Well, and that is so true because if you've been frozen in place and you finally make yourself start doing something, we've all experienced the surprise of, I was only going to work for 5 minutes and then suddenly 45 minutes went by. Like you just have to get yourself started to make some progress. And then you can feel good about the progress that you made. And so that is absolutely true. Motivation sometimes follows action. and success breeds success. That's correct, Beth. Okay, so number two, you want to set some clear goals. So set specific, achievable goals for decluttering, such as decluttering a drawer or organizing a shelf, to break down the task and to build momentum. Having smaller goals means you can accept your accomplishment and celebrate it as you finish each interim goal. And you need that positive experience to keep you going. Waiting to celebrate till the end of the whole project is far too long to be satisfied with your work and to feel accomplished. So you don't want to wait, just like Ed is not celebrating the one box he got done, but he's instead focusing on the stuff that's undone. Like he's missing the opportunity to celebrate and have a positive experience for what he accomplished. And so we're reminding him by this that you need to do that. Go and be happy about your box you got done. Practicing gratitude is a great practice for positive mindset. Focus on the items that you choose to keep and the positive aspects of your home and belongings. And anytime that you practice gratitude, you're shifting the focus of your mind away from all of those stressful and negative feelings into something that feels more peaceful. And so um, there's a lot of science around thinking about and being grateful for things and how that improves your mental health. And so do it around the things you're decluttering and the things that you decide to keep and why you like them and why they make you happy and the positive aspects of what you've gotten done in your home and the things that you own that make you feel good. Have gratitude around that and take a moment to be grateful for what you've unearthed and put in place to see and live with that you actually like.
And you can go, full Marie Kondo and thank the things that you're getting rid of. You can, thank them for the service they've given you
Right.
and thank them for what they get to do next, which is serve someone else.
Exactly. And it's funny when
Assuming you're giving away or donating, that
right,
is.
right,
If
right.
you're
Yeah.
throwing them away, well,
There you go.
yeah,
That's another thing.
that's a different story.
I actually tell clients when they're struggling, when they know they want to let it go and they're hesitating, I'm like, you can bless it and kiss it. And I make that little bless it and kiss it. And they do that and give it away. And somehow that allows them, that's my version of, being grateful, being Marie Kondo around it and being grateful for the object and how it's, been a part of your life. And I think sending something off with a positive thought and a kiss feels a little bit better. It makes the release feel a little bit better to people. And so um, I help people do that and it allows them to release things a little bit better.
Great comment from M in talking about the motivation follows action idea. She says, I proved that today. I noticed that a suction cup had left an odd mark on the microwave. I worked on it, which involved plastic polish,
Ah,
while the rest of the kitchen was a wreck. What happened was that one tiny polished area motivated me to wash down cupboards and counters and start the dishes.
woohoo! That's a perfect example. And I bet that ring on the microwave has been bugging you to death all this time. And you finally addressed it and fixed it. And then it prompted you to do a whole bunch of more stuff. So awesome. I bet it
Well,
looks fabulous.
and it's we're always sort of looking for the right thing to do.
It doesn't
And
matter.
the right thing to do is the thing that you can get yourself to do,
Right?
you know,
Yeah.
right now,
Right now,
Yeah.
100%.
It's called the right thing because you're doing it right now. There you
and
go.
and it's also no matter how insignificant or how wherever it is in the priority list, if that one thing got you moving and then you clean down a bunch of cupboards and counters, I bet those are on your list of things to do too, and they might have been a higher priority. And dealing with the thing on the microwave moved you forward to do all of those other things too. And so, doesn't matter how you get going, really doesn't matter. It
O-
all accomplishes things on your list.
Okay, one more comment before we go on. To give credit where credit is due. Jane said, just a reminder that in Goodbye Things, the author talks about the silent to-do list, meaning clutter. It's so
Yes.
true that things hanging over us are all on the silent to-do list.
Making your head miserable, right?
I apologize for not acknowledging that because I forget where all the great ideas that I have come from.
I know, right? You are just one big bowl of soup in there with all the stuff in it, right?
Yes.
You're just a crock pot with all this stuff hanging out in there. It is a silent to-do list. It is, and it's permanently in there barking at you until you get it done. And that's the super annoying part about clutter.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going on
Okay.
to the next thing. Practice mindfulness. You can engage with the process of decluttering in a mindful way, noticing how your emotions and your thoughts are changing as you clear out items. You'll realize that even things that feel distressing to let go of in the moment are soon forgotten after they're gone. Of course, that's not true for everything, but it will likely be true for most things. And also for those things that bring up negative emotions, you're going to feel the relief when it's gone and it's not triggering your bad feelings anymore. So being mindful as you let go of things about how you feel and what really feels distressing, but what actually feels better because you've let go of things will help you understand and feel better about letting go of things in the future because you have that experience of I let it go with some level of anxiety or stress, but then the next day I didn't even think about it anymore, or I was super happy that it was gone and I was super pleased with the clear space that I had made over there, and it looked so much better, and I knew where I put some things away and now they were in the right place and I was happy about that. So you can be mindful of how your emotions are changing as you declutter and notice that it does come with some positive reinforcement after the fact. You can design a positive environment. So declutter to create a calm and welcoming and peaceful space. A tidy and organized space can enhance your feelings of happiness and well-being. And imagine when your space is clear to the point that you don't feel distressed looking at it. Walking into a room and feeling peaceful about it will be a great experience when that, undone task list in the corner is not there looking at you anymore. Won't that be fabulous? Like that's that's really what you're aiming for, and how if you accomplish that clear space, you're going to get all those great peaceful feelings back as a result. You can employ mindful home decor. So focus on creating a space that's appealing and soothing to the eye and promotes calm and positive feelings. Looking over a space that you find appealing can only improve your sense of well-being, right? Like when you imagine any place where you walk into the room and you are like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, this is so peaceful. You can have that space in your house if you create it that way, if you think of it that way, and create a space that when you walk into it, you go, ah, you sigh and feel peaceful. That's a wonderful thing to have in your life. Boost your sense of self-worth. And decluttering empowers us to reclaim a sense of control over our environment and our lives. When your space is one that you feel comfortable in and can be proud to share with your friends and family, you will feel better about yourself. There's, of course, making the house presentable and feeling like you have control over it can only improve your sense of self-worth. There's no two ways about that. It's going to increase your confidence. Achieving those decluttering goals is going to boost your self-esteem, and it's going to create a sense of accomplishment. Yes, it is. You get to feel the opposite of what you feel when you consider the space too messed up to share with others. When it's a space that is now clear and ready to share with others, you're going to feel much more confident about yourself. And wouldn't that be a lovely place to be? You want to manage your stress and anxiety. So decluttering can reduce the stress and anxiety that's created by creating a more organized and calming environment. You all have experienced the increased stress of a cluttered space. Imagine the relief of releasing that stress response to a chaotic room and instead feeling peaceful when you walk in there. That's so much better. Let's aim for that goal, that you can walk in the room and you feel peaceful instead of stress. And that means that doing the decluttering work is going to give you that reward. And that is a great thing. The last one I think is the most important one in terms of positive psychology. Doing the decluttering is a way to experience catharsis. Decluttering provides an opportunity to process emotions that are associated with possessions and relationships. And this is such a big one. Stuff that's stashed away to hide it also stops processing the emotions that are associated with the stuff. Finally, dealing with that stash allows you to face and process those emotions so you can begin the healing process. We don't do it, and often because we're scared of the feelings we expect to happen and we want to avoid that. But Feeling the feelings and dealing with it can only help you get past your negative experience. It won't make everything all better, but avoided or bottled up feelings are so much more destructive than feeling something and being able to release it, even just partially. I find that it releases another layer of negative feeling. Like decluttering helps peel the onion of your emotional response, peeling another layer of your response away and lessening your burden. Dealing with the objects and the memorabilia that hold negative emotions of some event or some person in your life can really start a healing process that's been stalled. And one day you will have peeled it all away and you'll be able to move on. And won't that be a positive result that you're looking for? So I dig out a lot of pockets of here's the things that I inherited from my mother, and they're in the closet because I can't face them. Here's the box of, you know, stuff that my ex-husband didn't take away when he left when we got divorced. And those things have really strong negative um, emotions attached to them. But you've really just sort of parked them in the corner along with the emotions attached to them. You haven't dealt with it, you're just avoiding them. And so, again, it's another collection of pile that's barking at you. There's the practical of, I need to deal with my mother's stuff and all the, practical tasks that go with that. But there's also the, I need to deal with the loss that I am feeling associated with these objects that I have received. And so, getting those things out and stirring the pot, facing the feelings, and doing the practical processing also helps you process the emotions that are attached to it, and you will end up with um, at least a sensation of having moved a little forward in your emotional journey around it. It always lessens the burden some. It may not make it go away, but if the pile isn't over there reminding you that you have feelings you haven't thought about yet, that's an improvement. You don't have to think about them anymore because you already did it. And the stuff isn't there to make you feel bad about yourself because you're not facing it. Like that can only be an improvement in your mental health. And so it is so worth dragging out the emotional laden piles. And if you have to do that with help, that's great. And if you have to do it in little bitty bites, that's fine. Either way, facing those emotions and feeling them will be less damaging than leaving them stuck in there and avoiding them forever. So I have watched this happen again and again with clients, and I've had that experience myself dealing with my mother's stuff and incorporating it into my house and my life. And now I look at the stuff around that's in my house that came from my mother's house, and I feel warm feelings about it, and I feel good that she's represented in my life in that way. And I don't. It's been a decade now, but I don't feel super sad every time I look at the painting that used to be in her living room that's now in my house, right? So
Yeah.
I know when you're feeling those negative feelings and you're feeling like, okay, I can't face that, I can't face that, I can't face that. I know you can't imagine that you can get on the other side, but I'm here to tell you from personal experience that you absolutely can, and it will feel better on the other side. As scary as it is to face, it will feel better on the other side. And do it with help if you need. Bring one of your friends over to support you. uh, Talk to your therapist about it after you do have a professional organizer there while you work, whatever you need to do it. But I think it's worth the effort to try to climb that mountain and get the catharsis and the results of that on the other end. It'll improve your mental health a lot. So that's that's my discussion about catharsis.
Um, Lola commented earlier in the show, and I'm not sure what we were talking about at the moment, but she said, I believe grief makes this worse. It feels like a
Mm,
cycle. So I thought, let's talk a little more about grief. Because the grief that can be surfaced in decluttering can be about a lot more things than just, someone who's died.
absolutely.
There's grief about the thing you took on and couldn't complete. The project you took on and couldn't complete, or the hobby you picked up and didn't like. You can feel grief about all kinds of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Grief about,
This used to be part of my life, and it's not part of my life anymore.
right.
We used to
Grieve,
do this
grieving your
event.
younger self.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We used to have interest in this activity, and now we can't do it anymore. That kind of stuff. It all has grief attached to it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
losing your physical strength and mobility and stamina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, JB commented, and this was on the topic of mindset. Very difficult to maintain the solution mindset and physical energy to address the root cause of the poor mindset. I end up in self-care slash grace mode.
That's okay. You can be in self-care and grace mode. And if you just add into the, I'm giving myself a little bit of grace here. If you have to take a grace mode to give yourself a timeout to cope, that's okay. And if you're giving yourself a moment of grace to say, I can't accomplish that today, great. And so shift to a task that isn't as triggering. There's always things that seem more or less distressing to you in the house that need work. And so sometimes the best thing you can do is a half an hour on one that really distresses you and an hour on something that doesn't bother you nearly as bad, that or that doesn't have a trigger in it at all. Like, I got to clear out the kitchen cabinets. I need to, clean up the laundry room, and there's not emotional burden with that. It's just a project, right? And so you can give yourself little pieces of the super distressing stuff switched with things that are less distressing to give yourself a mental and emotional break. And add in, if you are feeling like you can't tackle it by yourself, add in somebody that you feel supportive in your life. Let someone come and sit with you while you do the work so that you can talk to them about it while it's happening, and so that you can feel like somebody has your back and is supporting you while you do it. I think that's a big part of why people have me come back a lot, because they see the difference between trying to tackle it by themselves and how much harder it is, and having me there to help them decide what to do first, and to help them talk through when they get stuck or they feel overwhelmed or something is emotionally triggering for them and they start to feel a lot of feelings. And I can sit there with them and let them tell me stories, and I can make suggestions about how to move forward, and we can process out loud what's going on. And so that, having someone there to help you and to be able to talk as you do the work, it can be an added way that if you're getting stuck all the time by yourself, then you can then have support, and maybe it'll make it easier for you to move forward. And eventually you'll get past the stuff that is super, super triggering, and you'll be able to move on to something else. And so uh, keeping at it.
Connie commented, I'm always trying to remind myself I don't have to clean up the kitchen. Instead, I get to have a cleaner kitchen the way I like it.
Right?
And that's a mindset shift.
Yeah, that's a definite positive reframing of the chore.
Yeah.
And I like that. And it's, you're just making it work for you so that you will stay on it and do something that you have decided that you want to do. It's not anybody else's plan. It's actually your plan about what you enjoy and what you would prefer in your own space. And so you are just motivating yourself to do what you yourself want to have and be and live with. And I think that that's awesome, because that is going to be how you support yourself and get it done so that you can live with the results that you like. Great.
M commented, this is on the catharsis, on the subject of catharsis. M says some people just throw away any item that they can't face, which seems to me would also throw away the opportunity for healing and finding good in past experiences.
I do find, particularly around grief from the death of a family member, uh, there's kind of two responses in that moment. Grief is for somebody that has died that you really are attached to. That grief is so overwhelming mentally and emotionally. It just takes up so much of your brain and your processing time. It really requires a lot of time and effort to absorb. And in that moment, you are super stressed, And everybody's stress response is different, but I find that there are some people that their stress response is to throw everything away. And some people's stress response in that moment is to keep everything because they can't make decisions. So throwing away is a way of not making a decision too. It's just a more, like they're getting it out of sight and not making a decision. They're just throwing it out. And so they're not putting any evaluative skill into whether or not it should be thrown away. They're just throwing it out to get it out of their face. And yes, those people sometimes regret some of the things that got thrown away. And the people that keep everything also regret the chaos that is created because they've kept everything. And so it's just stress responses. And when someone is in a lot of grief, and you have to know that grieving the loss of someone that's been part of your life for a long time, it takes a lot to absorb that mentally, to internalize that reality and make that be a part of who you are. And it's not just a couple of weeks, it's a couple of years. When you lose a parent or a spouse, it takes a while to absorb that reality internally in your soul, in your mind, in your heart. And it use a lot of energy and thought process to deal with that. And you can't make it flip on a dime. You can't fix it in a day. It doesn't, it takes a while for that reality to become part of you. And early on, after my mother passed away, I found myself, I was so distracted that I was walking around with coffee cups, and I kept walking into walls and dropping coffee cups. I would clip, like, I didn't quite know where I was in space a lot, and I would clip myself against the wall and hurt my arm or hand or whatever. And then I would be walking and holding on to a coffee cup, and I'd just accidentally drop it, and I ended up with coffee all over everything. It was ridiculous. But it happened a lot in the first 6 months as I was grieving the loss of my mother. And it was because my brain was completely busy doing something else that didn't have to do with daily living. And you have that feeling, and while your brain is that busy, you don't have the ability, you don't have all of your usual ability to make decisions. You don't have a lot of ability to focus. All of the things that you need to do to make decisions and deal with all the stuff you have to deal with is immediately compromised by the grief. And so you're not working with a full deck while you're trying to do all that work. And so people in that moment throw things away into the stress. They keep everything in the stress. And which is why this is the one time that I say, if you have the ability and you can afford it, and it works for your family, putting things in storage or leaving the task until later is probably a better way to deal with it. You'll have more capacity to deal with the decisions you have to make, and you'll be more able to focus later. And so a year or 2 years later, you'll be better able to cope than you were when it immediately happened. And you'll be less likely that, everybody won't be getting in fights, and it won't be, people get angry and freaked out in that moment, because they're under so much grief that their ability to regulate emotions kind of goes out the window too. Like, you just lose all of your self-control, and it all goes out the window. So this is why it's so terrible when somebody dies and the family all starts to deal with the stuff, and it gets really messy and angry and, combative, because everybody's at their worst and through no fault of their own. And so you too, if you're in grief, you're struggling with, less resources and trying to make a bunch of decisions or do a bunch of work in that situation is so much harder. And so, if you have to do it, fine. Get as much non-grieving help as you can to participate in the process. Perfect time for an organizer to come. And if you can wait a little while before you deal with it, that'd be better. But you don't want it to still be there 10 years from now. So
Right.
it's not a permanent pause, it's a temporary pause. There.
Summer sort of stated that, two sides of the emotional coin. She says, afraid when I let stuff go, that I am letting the person, the memories go too. And then her counterpoint is, having it there though keeps that dread and sadness in my head and heart.
Mm-hmm. And this is why we say, if you're worried about it, take a picture. Um,
Keep a sample.
Keep a sample, instead of all the china, keep, one plate or a cup and a saucer, or, something small, and release all the rest. You can take the picture if you're worried that you need the picture for the memory, if you think that's so associated you can't have the memory without the picture, then take the picture and that'll be enough for you to have the memory and you don't have to live with the stuff that makes you feel sad. So I think it is true that we often think it feels like we're throwing the person away. But the truth is that person that you remember when you see all the objects is not actually in all the objects, it's in your mind. And so there's nothing releasing in your brain when you give the object away, truly. It's still all part of your memory. And so it's just a matter of how you keep up with it. And maybe if you have a cup and you tell a story when you see that cup, it makes you think of a thing, then maybe you have a little journal and you go write down blah, 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 the teacup. Here's the picture of the cup. Here's the story that goes with the cup. Like you can just, document it in such a way. If you're that worried about losing the memory, go and write it down somewhere and find a nice thing to write in. And every time you have one of those thoughts, you can go jot it down. And then you don't have to worry about it. It's not going anywhere. The memory is going to be in written form too. And, if you want to touch those memories, you can go read your journal. And it doesn't have, the teacup doesn't have to be there.
Let's talk about next week.
Okay.
We're going to be back at the usual time next Tuesday, May 13th. And this is going to be an Ask Us Anything episode. Every survey that we put out has the question, what would you like to ask Gayle and Ed? Doesn't even have to be related to clutter. And so we've collected a few thousand of your responses, and we're going to see how many of them we can cover next week. So join us on
Right.
May 13th for that, and watch your email for a title, because we usually tease, two or three of the topics that we think will be the most interesting to the audience. Um, why don't you give us the title?
This week's title is Positivity Challenge. This week's assignment is to apply one of the positive psychology principles we talked about today to your own decluttering efforts. So, first, reflect on ways in which clutter in your home has had a negative impact on your mental health, on your ability to focus, your memory, your decision making, or your behavior. Explore using one of the approaches we've described in this episode to your decluttering or organizing process. I'm going to run the list again. Adopt a positive mindset, set a clear goal, practice gratitude, practice mindfulness, design a positive environment, employ mindful home decor, boost your sense of self-worth, increase your confidence, manage stress and anxiety, and experience the catharsis. See if one of those approaches will help you change your attitude around the clutter. Notice anything that changes in your experience of working on decluttering projects. Do you feel any improvement in your mood or outlook? Is the work easier or more difficult? Do you feel different in any way about the process? And then come back and tell us, do this work. Come back and tell us how you experienced it. I hope that we've given you some ideas about changing your mindset. And remember that you don't have to believe it, you just have to do it. It doesn't have to be that you believe that you feel positive. You can just try being positive as a mental exercise and see if it helps. And that's what we're really going for. And come back next week and tell us about it.
Also, we will include links in the show notes to the spots in the video where we talked about
Yes.
each of these techniques, so you
Yes.
can listen again to the relevant sections, because I know it's a lot. The list by itself might not be sufficient to help you remember what we were suggesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
once we
Go find the list.
have the video done, we'll get the timings so you can get to just what you need to revisit. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts?
What are my final thoughts? Um, we want you to incorporate these positive psychology principles into your decluttering process. And people who are processing clutter can not only create a more organized and functional space, but you're also going to enhance your overall mental well-being and cultivate a more positive mindset. And that can only be a bonus. You get a cleared up space you can be proud of and you can be comfortable being in. Plus, you get a boost of positive mental health. And that's what we want for you. So, we're hoping that you can incorporate these ideas and help you shift how you see facing the decluttering chore and get some positive benefit out of it. Come back and tell us for sure.
All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. Gayle, why don't you also throw up the card for virtual organizing sessions, because we've got a minute yet.
Okay, cool.
And you want to
Here's that
chat
one.
chat about that? Talk about.
Sure. So, basically, you can book me for an hour and we get on a Zoom call together and we are going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can show me things and we can actually work together online. Like I have helped people sift through paperwork and they show it to me and tell me what it is, and then we talk about what they need to do with it. I've also just helped people plan projects that way so they can show me what they're trying to accomplish and where they're overwhelmed, and I can set priorities for them. Oh, I think you should do this first and then this and then that. And so I can sort of be a backup and support for whatever decluttering project you have and what kind of roadblocks you're hitting. Sometimes people just call me because they're like, I've been working on this and I don't know what to do and I'm stuck here. And then we talk about how they're stuck and why they're stuck, and I help them untease that a little bit. And then they're cleared and they can go keep moving on their project. So however I can support you in your projects, that's what we do. And we talk for an hour and I'd love to do it with you. I always have a good time.
And visit cfhou.com/virtual to learn more about that.
Yep.
Okay, we love to hear from you, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through the website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks everybody for joining us. I know that there were some new people here today. I'm glad you came, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.